In this video, I'm going to give an example of a pretty simple concept in the Warcraft 3 World Editor after Reforged and how to achieve it. Very basic concept that I think a lot of people probably want to achieve when they're making a custom map is to use a different model, a different custom model for a Reforged asset or for a classic asset based on the user's mode setting, whether the user is chosen to be in the classic mode or the Reforged mode. So to give an example of that here in a map I already made, let's start in the classic mode. And I have this map I was testing with, just called Peasant Engine Fixed. And what I did is I made a model, and so it's a custom model file that includes a bit, essentially it was about like a peasant riding on a siege engine that has no gun. And so this peasant riding on a siege engine, you can see here I have, where I've played the game, and I set my game graphic settings to the SD or classic mode, and you can see that here I have a peasant engine that is a peasant riding on a siege engine. Now, I think the goal that a lot of people want to achieve is to have it that if one of their players who tries to play their custom map goes in the options and chooses the Reforged option, backs out of those settings and saves them, that then when that player goes back to play that exact same map, Peasant Engine Fixed here, and clicks Start, that it'll play the exact same game and have the exact same characters, cross-compatible between, maybe some players are in the SD mode and some are in the HD mode, but it's going to have the HD version of that same custom asset. In this case, the HD custom peasant riding on a siege engine. So now I want to talk a little bit about how to achieve this. Now you can see what the goal is, and we can see that it is possible there. The developers of the World Editor wanted this to be possible. They wanted it to be the case that it would be hopefully very straightforward to do what we just saw. So in order to do that, you can see we have here what used to be called the Import Manager, and they've changed the name to the Asset Manager, which essentially has this capability to do that. So based on how it was designed, if I just go to Import File here, right? Let's say I'm just going to make a map, and maybe I'll import. I have this like Peasant Engine _HD and Peasant Engine _SD. And you can see these are the two different versions of the model that I've created both. But you might notice the first thing you'll see is when I import both of them, the mode column here in the Asset Manager says SD for both of them. That's not because it's found anything in the file that is or isn't HD. That's simply because every single file, when you import it, defaults to the SD mode. When we change it to the HD mode, which you can do by just clicking it, all that actually does under the hood is when it is saving the models into your map, it puts them in a special subdirectory for HD mode. So because of that, if I put both of the two models on the SD mode, which is that default when you first import them, you can see I can actually go into the unit editor here and copy the siege engine and essentially make a custom siege engine called Peasant Engine that's going to use this custom character model. But you can see when I've imported both of them like that, in my list of imported models that I can put on the character, there's two options, right? The SD and the HD. Ultimately, this isn't what you want, but we could sort of demo how that functions here just to make it really clear, right? I can make a unit that's like the Peasant Engine HD and make a separate unit, a separate character whose little character name is like Peasant Engine SD, right? And if I do that, and I go in here, and you can definitely do that, the model supports, the engine supports both kinds of models. I can have those two different characters, and I can put them in the game world side by side, and you can see, most definitely these are two different 3D model files, and I can save them both into my map. We could go ahead and save this map on the hard drive here somewhere. Let's go ahead and give it a name. We'll put it in this test folder and call it HD_SD_Peasant Engine. That's great. Another good thing to do to help yourself find the map later is going to be to name it the same thing in the map description here. So HD_SD_Peasant Engine. This is a good thing to do. So as you can see from that, now I have these two different characters, which is, again, it's not what we want, right? Like, it works. It definitely is something that you can do. You can import both of these 3 model files into the World Editor, and you can load both of them. And here even I just click Test so we can see as an example. I'll launch the game, and you'll see, I have both of those characters, and both those, they're totally legal files in the game engine, and they can be sitting next to each other like that. But, in terms of our goals, this isn't the goal. The goal is to have one character who can sort of, dynamically swap between either one of these based on whatever particular setting you're in. So the intention of the game developers on how to do this was really pretty straightforward. Essentially, because we have this mode dropdown, what you have to do as a user is go to the mode dropdown and set it to HD. And when you do that, it adds this subdirectory on the HD version of the model. So we want to make sure the model is named the same. At that point, you get rid of the difference in the file name because it's already, when it actually saves internally, it's already in a different folder. And it's the same thing with the SD one, right? You can delete that file name off of both of them. And when one of them is SD and the other is HD like this, it allows you to give them the same file name. Again, because it actually knows that this one internally is in a subdirectory called HD. So because of that internal change, I can go in here and I can, where I used to have 2 different units, I can get rid of them and just have one single unit. And you'll see the world editor understands that. If I go to the list of imported models, it just shows one single model, and I can select that and push OK. And then at this point, because of a malfunction in the world editor, you'll notice that even though I'm in the HD graphics environment, it loads the SD version of the model for display. That's just kind of an indicator that some of the stuff in the actual world editor is malfunctioning. But in general, if you save the map at that point and you try to play it, you'll probably see that it'll start doing what you want. So let's test that right now. I'm going to launch the game, and we'll make sure to test our map without saving it, both in the SD and the HD mode, so you can see an example of this. So I'll just go into single player, custom game, and here we go. So I saved this map in the folder called test, so we'll know when we go in there, we have the HD_SD_ peasant engine, and this is our new map. So I'll go ahead and start playing it. I'm pretty sure we're still in the HD mode from earlier in our testing, so we should then see, as we would expect, we have our map and we have our little peasant engine right here. So the next trick with our peasant engine is to be able to leave the game and, without changing the save map, go into the options, toggle to the classic graphics mode, save it, and this is a real test, right? When I do that, can I launch the map again and see the SD version of that same character model? And that is, of course, the intention with what we just did in the world editor. Now you'll see it actually worked, right? And it loads. So we've essentially achieved our goal. We have a character model that can load in the SD or the HD mode. But this is where things get a little bit interesting. After the first time that I save this map, especially you'll see this if I close the map and then I open the map again. Sometimes it'll have other behaviors, but this is a really clear example of it. You'll notice when I close the map and open it again, the world editor is now showing our character as having an HD model, which is a little bit different, right? When I saved, it showed an SD model, again, sort of indicative of this world editor malfunction. Because of the world editor malfunction, even though we just played this map, and it was very clear to us that it worked as you would intend, the act of saving the map again from the world editor after opening it will actually corrupt and destroy the contents. So if you see now, if I play the game, and this is just because of a malfunction in the world editor, that very same map that we just played with nothing different other than just opening it and saving it again is going to have this issue where it no longer functions in the SD mode. So let's go ahead and demonstrate that right here. If I just go to this test folder and we go to HD peasant engine, remembering, of course, to start off that we are on the classic graphics mode, so we could test that one first. Go ahead and start the game, and as it launches, you can begin to see here that our character is invisible, unfortunately, right? Now, if you wonder why are they invisible, you can quit out of this map and you can go into the options and you can toggle to reforge and ask yourself, is the entire model gone? What is it that the world editor did due to its malfunction when I just opened and saved the map? So if I launch the game again, having just done that, and having just changed now to the reforged or HD graphics mode, what you'll see is it works still in this mode. So what happens is essentially that due to this malfunction in the world editor, the act of opening and saving one of these maps that has a model capable of swapping like this damages and destroys the data inside of the map. So in order to avoid that, what you can do is always use the SD version of the world editor. Now, in order to access that version of the world editor, you have to go into File Preferences down here, and in this Asset mode, you toggle the Asset mode to SD, and it'll tell you that won't take effect until you restart the editor. So once you do that, you close the editor out again, you launch it. And once you've done that, you have a different version of the world editor that looks very different. It's in that SD mode. And most importantly, this version of the world editor is able to maintain the distinction between SD and HD content. So, for example, we could go ahead and save ourselves a map here that is just exactly the same as the one we made before, except we'll call it hd_sd_ peasant engine _fixed, because we're going to essentially show that you can fix this problem and still be able to continue working on your map. So we're going to call this hd_sd_ peasant engine _fixed. So this is the fixed one now. It's blank. We haven't done the work in it yet. But essentially, when we go in here and we import our character model, and we'll just go to that same folder. We'll import peasant engine HD, peasant engine SD. We'll set the HD one to the HD mode, and we'll delete the difference in naming. So they have the very same name and should behave the exact same. Likewise, we'll do as we did before. We duplicate the unit, and we give the unit this new model. You'll see again, there's only one option for the model because that's the only thing that we imported. Once I do that, I should be able to place this custom character in the game world. And you'll see right there, shows up because the world editor is in the SD mode. There are not any particular malfunctions yet. So I can just essentially save that map, and then we can start trying to play it. Now again, to make it very clear whether I test the map with my game in the HD or SD mode, I haven't been using the test map function, right? I've been launching the game deliberately through the single player view so that it's really clear before we start which mode we're testing with, because it makes a big difference. So now I'm going to get back in, and we should see our map. But one thing you might notice, I think I may have... oh yeah, here we go. Cool. So here's the map, HD, SD, peasant engine fixed. And what I'm going to do now is double check my settings. So you can see my settings are on the Reforged mode. Last time we tested, we did Classic, then Reforged, so let's start with the Classic mode. So now I'm in the Classic mode. We're going to test the map. It was saved with the SD version of the editor, so we would expect that should probably work for sure, that the editor version and the game version, when they match, tends to work. So here you can see that I've saved the map, and it's working, again, in that SD version. So assuming that the world editor works in this case, how it did in the HD version, you would totally expect that when we go and play the map, what we're going to see is, again, everything's working correctly. And that was the same in the HD world editor for the first time that we saved it. So here I'm starting off now in the HD graphics mode, having saved in the SD world editor. After doing that, what you find is that the custom model does work. We are able to have our character with our peasant riding on its siege engine. So this is where it gets interesting, because we can clearly see that in both modes, in the SD and the HD world editor, saving the map the first time works. But what we observed in the HD world editor is that if I just close that new map that I've made, and I open it again, and then we see our character, and I save the map, when the world editor is in the HD mode, a world editor malfunction will then destroy the contents of the map and make it so that it will never work in the SD mode. Because my world editor is in the SD mode, it is currently the case that even though I just opened the map and saved it, I should be able to play the game and not have the issue. So we could check that again. To make sure we get our correct map, we're going to go in the test folder where I saved it. HD, SD, peasant engine fixed. So as we see here, if I go to the classic mode and save and start the game, we should see that it will still work in game. And there you go, the character is still present. Now something else is, as I was kind of clicking fast when I did save in the world editor, let's go and save in the world editor again, just to kind of, double check that this is a pathway to where you'd be able to maintain your map and keep working on it. So I open it again, I'm saving it again just for good measure, and we're just kind of triple checking that even after I do that, is this still going to work in the game? So here I am again. Let's test our map again. I'll click Start Game. And again, the game engine is still in the SD mode, so we're still going to see the SD character. And as you can see, our character model is still there, it's still present. And so now I'm going to do one last test. I'm going to put the game engine in the HD mode. And you can see we've saved this map several times in the SD world editor. And unlike the HD world editor, the map has not been damaged, to our knowledge. And so we double check here to make sure that the SD world editor did not damage the HD version of the model either. But as we would expect, it hasn't damaged it. So this essentially shows you that it is possible to create this kind of content in a very simple way as intended with the drop downs in the asset manager, where you choose HD and SD for your files. But what's important to keep in mind is that due to the malfunction in the HD version of the world editor, you will not be able to save your map without destroying it or damaging its contents, unless you just simply don't use that version of the world editor and always use the SD version of the world editor.